Hello, my name is Christopher Michael Brooke, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the book Instant Rapport by Michael Brooks, not by me. Brooks claims that people interpret the world around them primarily in terms of images, sounds, or feelings, and that by tapping into the representational systems that people use to think, we can place ourselves in rapport with them and aid our communication with them. Now, according to Brooks, there are three systems or modalities, so-called, that we use to think about the world. First is visual, or thinking in terms of images. The second is auditory, thinking in terms of sounds. And finally, you have kinesthetic, which would be thinking in terms of feelings or emotions. And according to Brooks, most people, well actually all people, pretty much have all three of these particular ways of thinking, but one of the three is usually going to be the dominant one that's used more often than not. Overall, the majority of the population tends to think in terms of visual or images. The second largest percentage of the population is usually a kinesthetic, or somebody who thinks in terms of feelings, emotions. And then the smallest area of the population, usually about 20%, are generally auditory thinkers who think about the world around them in terms of sounds. And actually, to back this up, I have a quote from Visual, Auditory, Kinesthetic Learning Styles and Their Impacts on English Language Teaching by Abbas Gilakjani. And according to Gilakjani, 20 to 30% of school-age children appear to be auditory learners, 40% are visual learners, and about 30% are tactile or kinesthetic learners. And in this particular study, they were looking at school-age children to determine the best way to communicate academic information to them effectively. According to Brooks, it is possible to determine the primary representational system that somebody uses. So again, most people have all three and use all three all the time, but one of the three is generally going to be the more dominant and the most used. And actually, I've got a quote here to confirm that. A quote from Eye Movement as an Indicator of Sensory Components in Thought by Michael Buckner. And he says here that inter-rater agreement supports the NLP claim that specific eye movement patterns exist and that trained observers can reliably identify them. So what does all this mean? Well, if you know somebody's primary way of thinking, if you know their primary modality for thinking, you can communicate in a modality that people naturally understand better. Example, if somebody generally thinks in terms of images, you might well, actually, generally, you will be better able to communicate with them by communicating in terms of images. And by that, I don't necessarily mean like sign language or showing them a picture. But if you talk in a way that your words convey images more than they convey feelings or sounds, you're likely going to communicate better with them. And this actually goes back to message planning, thinking about how you're trying to get a message across before you just kind of open your mouth and say whatever comes to you. So, the second useful bit of information that comes along with this is that speaking in a person's specific dominant modality is a good way to build rapport with them or build a feeling of closeness and familiarity. According to Jessica L. Locken and her article Using Non-Conscious Behavioral Mimicry to Create Affiliation and Rapport, results suggest that behavioral mimicry may be part of a person's repertoire of behaviors used non-consciously when there is a desire to create rapport. What she's saying is that unconsciously, when we're trying to fit in with people or be like them, we tend to mimic them. And matching your representational system to somebody else's primary representational system is a form of mimicry. And Brooks goes on to offer some advanced techniques for creating this rapport, but that would kind of fall outside the scope of this presentation on communication, so I'll leave those for you to read about yourself. In summary, there are three modalities of thought. People tend to think in images, sounds, and feelings, with one of them being dominant over the others. And it is possible to determine the primary system through observation that people will use to think. And then once you know this primary system, you can match the person's primary modality in order to enhance communication and place yourself in good rapport with them. And that is the end of my presentation here. If that were actually my book, I would say buy my book, but it's not my book, so I will say eat lots of ice cream and have a good day. And thank you for watching.